So here we are. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this Ledger Ask Me Anything. Thanks to all of you for joining us today. My name is Nicole, and I'm here to present this event and introduce you to Matt Johnson, our Chief Information Security Officer, who will be our guest for today's MEA. We know that many of you are concerned about what happened this summer with the data breach. We received a lot of questions on Twitter and by email about that. So today is really the occasion to answer all of you and better explain how Ledger dealt with that, and most importantly, how we are going to make sure this will never happen again. We remind you to use the chat to share your question, and Matt will answer some of them at the end of this event. So Matt, I'm gonna leave you now the word to explain, to introduce yourself and explain us a little bit what happened, what are the key information about the data breach, and tell us more about how Ledger is reacting to that.
Great, thanks, Nicole. And hopefully everybody can see me and you're able to hear me as well. Yes, great, thank you. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening to you all from wherever you are joining us from around the world. Thank you for taking the time out to come and join us today. I'm Matt Johnson, and I've recently joined Ledger as the Chief Information Security Officer, and it's been a rather busy start to my journey, to say the least. Firstly, a little bit about myself. You can probably tell from my accent that I'm actually an Australian, and I started my career with the Australian Federal Police, and so I come from a strong investigative and policing background. I moved to the UK more than 20 years ago when I crossed into the private sector, and since then I've worked for a number of different companies specialising in information security, security risk, cybersecurity, and physical security. I ran the information security and cybersecurity teams at Visa Europe for almost 8 years. And most recently, before joining Ledger, I was the Group Chief Security Officer for Ingenico, who are now being acquired by Worldline and form the fourth largest payments provider in the world. And they're the largest in Europe. Now, I joined Ledger to continue to drive maturity across the security arena. I believe they're at a crucial point on their journey. Crypto is rapidly becoming mainstream in its adoption, and this is only going to accelerate. As this adoption increases, value is recognised by more and more individuals and organisations. It makes us all a much more attractive target. That's us, Ledger, as an organisation, and you and me, everybody who holds crypto or alternative payments. I want to be part of the journey and the solution that helps protect the entire ecosystem. Ledger attracted me as an organisation that sits at the junction of the crypto ecosystem, working with many providers, and offers a wide range and variety of products and services from the consumer through to the enterprise. Ledger's got some exciting products coming to market during 2021, making a number of improvements, but that's not what we're going to talk about today. I'm very keen to be part of that, but we're here today to talk about that breach. Before we go further, I'd like to address a couple of things. Firstly, no company ever wants to find itself in this situation. And personally, as a CISO just joining at the beginning of January, I didn't want to start off my role with Ledger having to respond to such an incident. Everyone within Ledger understands the issue, and to a person, we're focused, committed, dedicated to making sure that all of our customers, are safe, secure, and that we're delivering the best possible service. There's a lot of focus, commitment, and determination on that. So that's the first piece that I wanted to get out. The second point is that I take this sort of incident very, very personally. My background in policing leads me to strong action and for follow-up to not only resolve the challenge, but to actively try and go after the individuals that have been attacking both Ledger and our customers. I'm particularly focused on tracking down those individuals that have been perpetrating this, and I'm especially keen to look at those individuals who've been sending emails threatening physical violence or home invasion to people. I personally know how concerning and worrisome it can be to receive and read and feel that sort of thing. What we know about how the scammers work is that they actually don't want to risk the opportunity of being physically confronted by themselves. They hide behind their emails and they generate a feeling of worry and concern and try and create that sense of panic to convince you to hand over your hard-earned crypto. Again, the reason they're trying to convince you or scare you is because they can't get it from the Ledger device themselves, or without you sending it to them directly, or without you divulging your 24 words. I do want to be really clear here. We have not had any confirmed reports of any of these threats or actions actually taking place. But I can't stress enough that if you do feel concerned, if you do see something suspicious, if you are worried or feel threatened in any way, you should immediately contact local law enforcement and your local police force or service and report that immediately to them. Many of the emails and the examples that we've seen are linked to a couple, only a small number of threat actor groups. It's of course very, very easy to generate and send hundreds of emails in a very short period of time. I'd also like to remind everybody about the ability to set up plausible deniability on your device. This allows you to create multiple wallets, and then depending upon the PIN entered, it will show either one or another, so depending upon that PIN. So for example, you can configure your device so that it will show a wallet that has, only a couple of Bitcoin or however much you'd like to put in there, while actually keeping secret the fact that you've got the other wallet with hundreds of Bitcoins or other currencies within that. So to reiterate, your cryptocurrency is safe as long as you continue to follow the good guidance and good practice that I know a lot of you have been doing. And the thing especially that's been outlined time again, do not divulge your 24 words. The attacks against Ledger have not impacted our hardware, our internal devices, or our software, or any of our internal systems. They still remain secure, and Ledger is the only independently assessed and verified secure hardware device on the market today. Crypto and alternative payments have been seen as the outer fringes for too long in my books, and this can't continue to be the case. Mainstream adoption is here and now, and we all need to continue to work together to ensure the safety and security of the entire ecosystem. And that's one of my personal aims, the protection not only of Ledger, but the improve the wider ecosystem for crypto or alternative payments. In the good old days, we used to take things of value and stick it in a strong box or stuff it in a safe or a safety deposit box, things like that. We used to rely upon banks and go to a bricks and mortar bank for any banking services. I remember when they were closed for lunch, never opened on the weekends. You had deposit withdrawal books. We used to send checks in the post to one another. ATMs became available, and then we spent the next many, many years embedding the mantra of you don't reveal your PIN, you don't reveal your PIN, and continuing to work on ways to improve the security and stop card cloning. So with the more recent chip and PIN, I say more recent, they have been around for quite some time. So your 24 words are the equivalent to the PIN. Don't share them with anyone. It's your control all resides within that. Ledger won't ask for them, no reason to share them, and the attackers and the fraudsters will always go after you, the easiest elements to attack, and that's you. So just don't, please. We will continue to explore, adapt, review, test, and improve, and that security is always that evolving cycle that we go through. So getting to the substance of the call and what we're doing, what my approach is. So again, being clear, there are situations where we have to retain personal data. We need to do that for a number of reasons. So they could be financial. For tax, we need to be able to show the traceability of our sales. We also need to be able to hold the information for periods in which chargebacks can be made. So we need to once again be able to trace back through the transaction for the sale of the device through to the records and the transaction that was made. There's also other scenarios where we may need to do, for example, if one of our suppliers came to us and said there was a batch of batteries that have been used, we need to do a recall on that. We need to also be able to come back through that within that period. Now, to be really, really clear, There is no financial data that's been impacted. There has been no transactional data of any financial information that has been impacted through these breaches. And I also want to be really clear, my example of a recall due to a faulty battery is purely an example. That's absolutely not the case. We've had no reason to recall any of our devices whatsoever. Okay. But the fundamental principles that I'm looking at is the way we handle and changing the way that we handle and keep customer data. So what I'm driving is we only hold it for as long as we need to. As soon as I can get rid of it, I want to get rid of it because, from my security perspective, your trust and your value as customers is a lot more important to me than any data that we might hold. We're only going to ask going forward for the minimum amount of information that we need to fulfill our shipping requirements or those other legal obligations that I mentioned. Once we've fulfilled those obligations, the data will be moved as soon as practical into a dedicated, segregated environment, and then we'll be deleting or redacting that information within those originating systems. Another problem that we face during this situation is the reliance upon email. It's been used as a primary form of communication, and it's then allowed the spammers and attackers to keep on using emails to send it out. Ledger, we're moving to a model where any sensitive or important information that needs to be communicated with you will be sent through Ledger Live. So that will be the only channel via which we will do that communication. All other email communications will either be through your opt-in because you're wanting to be on the mailing list for notification of upcoming products or new events that we're doing, or it will be to direct you to Ledger Live to let you know that there is important information that is in there as well. The other thing that comes through from all of this is, shipping our products around the world is a complex logistical challenge. And we have to use a number of third parties to be able to do that. I'm conducting a review of every single one of our third parties that we work with and looking at them all with regards to what information they get sent, what information they hold, how long they have to hold that, and then all of their security controls around making sure that they're living up to and keeping up the same sort of standards that we would require them to do. So that we use Shopify, and I'll touch on the conversation around Shopify in a little while. I've been spending a lot of time with Shopify recently, talking to them about their controls, what it is that their customer service agents can and can't do. We also have a new data protection officer joining us in a couple of weeks. Very much looking forward to when they join us, and that we'll be able to give them a very specific, continuous and ongoing focus around all of the data flows and the data elements. So that will be a dedicated focus role for the organization with the data protection officer. So if we can just slide on to slide 5, please, Nicole. I'd like to talk about what else it is that we've been working on. Okay, so what else since the breach we've been working on? Firstly, say thank you to everybody who's reported phishing attacks or the variations of the phishing attacks. The input that you've been giving and making us aware of those, it's allowed us to contribute to a fairly substantial library of different examples. So please keep on going back to ledger.com, looking at those pages, and you'll become familiar and see all of the new examples that we put up there as we get them. We are seeing large numbers that are just using the same theme, so we're only putting up obviously the one version of that. But that information and other information that's been given to us by yourselves has allowed us to work with law enforcement agencies, with private investigation firms, through legal takedown notices, and we've taken off, as of today, the count is actually 300 sites have been taken offline. Every single one of those sites was associated with scams trying to get people to divulge their 24 words or download malicious versions of Ledger Live. So we've got those different investigative organizations, and we've taken on additional investigation firms. Sole intention is to locate those responsible, track them down, pass it through to law enforcement for further action. The individuals involved in Shopify have actually already been identified, and they are currently with law enforcement. Unfortunately, I can't comment further on that, where that is, but it did require the collaboration between 3 different law enforcement agencies around the world. We do know that Ledger was not a specific target in that attack, but was one of 200 stores that were actually impacted through there. We've raised a Bitcoin bounty, so we've placed 10 Bitcoins, and that's going to be used as a fund to fund anybody who comes forward. And it's depending upon the value of the information, how much is there. There will be a determination made as to how much of that 10 Bitcoin will be paid out. But basically, we're after people to come forward and encourage them to come forward with new information that leads to the identification, arrest, and successful prosecution of anyone else involved in this attack. I'm also speaking to other companies and other organisations, asking them to contribute to this fund so that we can actually look at tackling this as a broader problem, because there are other organisations out there that are having exactly the same challenge that we are. And what we want to do is try and come together and pool resources to be able to go after these individuals. So going through there. Okay. So now I'd like to move on to the incidents itself and what's happened. So can we move on to slide 7, please? So what actually happened? Okay. To be clear, and as I said, nobody wants to start off their role in a new company, and no company wants to find itself in this situation. But there are two separate incidents that I need to talk about. We have the Shopify data theft, where rogue agents within Shopify actually downloaded customer information. And we also have the Ledger data breach, which was accessed via a third-party API key. So I'll address some comments that I've heard, talking around the number of people who were impacted. The reason there's been a change and different numbers that have been placed out at different times is because we were dealing with two separate incidents. So if I touch first of all on the Ledger API key, there's no nice, easy way to put it, but basically a third-party developer who was working with us stored and left an API key in a publicly accessible location. Now, that should never have happened and will never happen again on my watch, but it was found out there, and what happened was malicious individuals were able to see that key. They were then able to use that and make a number of calls. Those calls then enabled them to access customer data. And I'll touch more on that as we go through. Actually, no, I'll address all of that one first of all, and then move on to the Shopify. So that we know was exposed to mid-April, and on the 14th of July, we received an email from a security researcher saying, by the way, are you aware that that's actually there? So we weren't, and it was immediately patched. We then started digging into the incident and looking at what was able to be exposed, what was potentially exposed. We did a notification to the French Data Protection Authority in accordance with our obligations on the 17th of July. We then kept doing the analysis, and we engaged an external forensic organisation, Orange Cyber Defence, and they started working on it, analysing logs, forensic images, all of that sort of good work on the 20th of July. And on the 29th of July, they provided a report to us. Now, that report from them said, look, here's the size and scale. We believe that there was 1 million emails that were impacted. Those emails were the marketing and sign in, so where people had signed up and subscribed. It was also understood at that time that only 9,500 individuals had been impacted in terms of their names, address, phone numbers, and shopping records being compromised as part of that breach. That's all that Orange Cyber Defence were able to positively confirm for us. If we can just slide on to the next page, please, Nicole, and I'll jump back to this one when we go back onto the Shopify incident. On the 5th, we filed the first complaint with the French public prosecutor with regards to the access of our systems and the access of that data. We didn't see a great deal in the way of phishing attacks around that time, but they did start ramping up in October. We started being notified by individuals, and at that time we did the notification to all of our users, a warning of phishing attacks. Sorry, and if you can just slide back, I just want to be clear, Nicole, just to make sure everybody understands the actions and activities. So on the 29th of July, when we got that report back, we communicated directly to the impacted users, to that community, 9,500. We also communicated on the website and also via Twitter that there had been a breach, that there had been an impact to Ledger at that time. So that was put out then. Next slide, please, Nicole. Okay, so then come October 22nd was when we started doing the proactive warnings of our customers about phishing attacks working with us. We engaged call search and we started taking down phishing websites. That's then we then also started getting more information coming in from people like yourselves, making us aware and doing the shutdowns. And as I said, that's now culminated as of today in 300 websites actually being taken offline, and we continue to work this avenue. November the 9th, we were working with WebDrone, to work on identifying the authors of the phishing attacks, and then also going with chain analysis to track the scammers' crypto wallets, because obviously, where they're asking for payments, we're able to, look at those, do the analysis through the explorers and see whether or not funds are actually going onto exchanges. And where they are, we've taken steps to seize or to freeze those funds with the exchange, and then work with them to do what we can to have those returned where we're able to show that trail. On the 26th of November, we filed a second complaint with the French public prosecutor. This one was specifically pertaining to the phishing attacks against Ledger customers. Then we had, on the 20th of December, we had the full public dump of the database. Now, I'm just going to pause there for a moment on the 21st, because, as of the 21st, that was when we put out yet another announcements to everybody, contacted people via email, via our blog, the website, and social media to make them aware. So that's kind of the scene and the steps and actions that were taken with regards to doing notifications, contacting our customers, working with third parties, receiving the forensic report up to the point of the 21st of December. If we could just slide back one slide again, please, Nicole. So that we understood to be the impact on the basis of the API key access. What wasn't known to us at that time was that on the 18th of April and on the 16th of June, Shopify customer support agents accessed their system. They had legitimate access to do so. They accessed a function that allowed them to do an export of an entire store and all of the data. Why Shopify customer support agents would require that sort of functionality is anyone's guess. I'm sure there was at some point a sensible reason for it, and that's one of the things that I've been working with Shopify around and asking them about what else they've been doing to limit the access and functionality that their customer support agents have. So there were actually two separate agents who accessed the database, and again, to be clear here, the difference in the database and what was accessed, it was essentially the exact same data that was held and accessed through the API key. The difference between the access on the 18th and the access on the 16th of June was around about 20,000 additional records. So when we did our first notification about the API leak and the data that was involved in that, that was why you would have heard potentially of a number of 272,000 impacted individuals. And then finally, when the database was dumped, we were able to see that actually that was 295. So that was then 292. So that's where the different numbers come from as part of this process. So there's always a concern about making sure we get the information right and share it with our customers and put it out as quickly as we can. There's also the point where we need to make sure that the data is accurate and correct at the time of putting it out. So that's why in December you will have seen a number of communications in short succession, because we then had the notification of Shopify at the same time and the dumping of the database. So Nicole, if you could just slide on to the next page again, please. Okay, and so that then 23rd of September, Shopify publicly reported that they had a breach. They put out there saying that there was almost 200 merchants that had been impacted as part of that. Ledger was not identified. Ledger was not contacted specifically to report and say that we were involved. It was not until we saw the dump of that database that we knew that that was actually from Shopify, and we then had the contact with them, and they said yes, it was actually from them and their systems. So once again, the information that was provided to us at the time of the 23rd was that almost 200 merchants had been impacted, but Ledger was not impacted and identified as being impacted at that time. So I appreciate I've thrown a lot of numbers, a lot of dates, and a lot of information at you all at the moment. So I'm just going to pause there for a moment. Nicole, if you'd like to slides to the next page, please. Okay, so the 23rd, that was the notification to from Shopify to Ledger about those agents. Private investigation firms were engaged on the 23rd of December, and then we've notified the French Data Protection Authority on the 26th about the Shopify incident, and the forensic analysis commenced on the 29th. We've then filed the third complaint with the French public prosecutor against the two rogue Shopify agents. And the announcement of Shopify incident and publication of the blog post, we put all of that up on the 13th after we'd received that analysis through Shopify. Okay. So hopefully that's clear there. Nicole, if you'd like to go on to the next slide, please. So ongoing actions. I've touched on a number of these as I've been going through earlier on, and as I was walking through the timeline. But once again, to be really clear, once we were notified by the security researcher about the API key issue, that was patched immediately. We've warned all of our users using a combination of email, social media, websites, and other media means as soon as practicable to us. And to the groups that we believe that were impacted. I'd like to address another question that I've had raised. I've had a number of people say that they'd never received an email of the notification or the email warning. We've done a fair bit of digging on this, and generally the common cause of that is that it's actually been received by the spam or gone into the spam filter. So if you haven't received that, I would ask you to go back and please have a check, and you'll hopefully find that in there as well. So we patched it, we filed the complaints, we've got the task force set up that's taking down, as I said, the 300 website. We've got the customer success team working 24/7. So they're actually going through all of the tickets, trying to resolve as many of those questions as quickly as possible. We've undertaken the review of the data policy, making that more efficient. And we've been doing a lot of education for our users and our customers. So once again, I would encourage you all to go back to ledger.com and go through the page, continue and refresh yourself on the different campaigns that are going through, as well as the tips for keeping ourselves safe. Next slide, please. Okay, so what else can we be doing to keep ourselves safe? The analysis of the emails that were involved in this leak was that actually 93% of those emails had previously been exposed as part of that Shopify breach. They'd previously been exposed elsewhere. So that's not an excuse. That's not saying, oh, well, tough. Actually, it's saying the complete opposite. What we find is, I hold email very personal to me. My email accounts, I attach a form of online identification with them. So, it's not something that I want being abused or published or pushed out there. So really, really understand that. When we looked at that data to go, 93% of those emails had previously been exposed and out there. It's just a continuation of the challenge that all companies and organizations face against phishing campaigns. Obviously, this is different in that it's specifically tied to Ledger and the fact that we provide hardware wallets. It's allowed them to be even further targeted rather than the usual spam that I get for Viagra pills or all the various things that you've all seen and you've all probably received as well. So it's something that continues, and all companies and organizations, we need to continue to work against it. Once again, that's part of my message about continuing to help and address that ecosystem. So keep educating yourselves, educate your friends, educate your family. Never share your 24 words. We'll never ask for it. The only two places you type it are going to be in your nano and on the recovery sheet. Also, please, report phishing websites to Google Safe Browsing or come through and do it as well. A couple of other tips and tricks that you can do. And something that I certainly do and take advantage of is I don't use the one email address for everything. I know that this involves, a little bit of time to set up a different email address, but I've got an email address that I use for my personal correspondence, communication. I use a separate one for my online shopping, and I keep them very, very separate. Actually, a lot of them. Where possible, use a PO box or a work address to have parcels or packages delivered to. Once again, I understand that that's not always feasible, practical, and there's a number of challenges around that. But if you can, please do. Also, it might be worthwhile looking at if you are able to obtain a local PO box nearby. Some of them are very, very reasonable. Don't use text or SMS-based MFA. So, we've seen challenges around SIM swapping. We've had people being phoned and called directly. So, concerns around mobile devices being compromised. Please don't use text or SMS-based MFA. I think I've said it enough about not divulging your 24 words. Please continue to follow good practice. The things that I'm sure many of you already do: regular patching, regular system checks and updates. Don't use the same passwords across multiple sites. Please keep those safe and secure. Use antivirus software for those of you who are on systems that need that. Please continue to visit ledger.com. Your recovery words recovery sheet, I would recommend that gets split across 3. Once again, there are online tutorials and guides on how to do that and store those pages at different secure locations. Once again, there is a challenge to that, but that comes down, I think, to the risk assessment that each and every one of us needs to make regarding the volume of potential value that we hold or we are storing. And the other thing that I would suggest is don't hold all of your currency in one location. I have multiple devices, and depending upon what I'm doing will depend upon which one I use, and that way I know that I can keep it safe. It's just like the government, in the UK in particular, the government will protect bank accounts to the value of X amounts, and looking at further things and ways that we can offer insurance as well is all part of what we're looking at for the future. Okay. Hopefully I've made that clear. I'm just conscious I want to make sure I give people plenty of time to ask questions. So Nicole, can we move on to the next slide, please? One of the other things that I've heard a lot is I haven't had a response back. I didn't hear from Ledger. I've just received a standard response. As you can see from here, there has been a massive spike and increase in tickets on a daily basis as people have heard, become informed, and raised requests or questions with us. Once again, this isn't an excuse. I'm not saying you should just suck that up and we should not worry about it. It is absolutely something that we are focused on. We've hired additional resources. They're already online. We're getting additional in to keep on working through that. We are working through the outstanding requests. We've added additional FAQ pages to try and help people reference and answer their own questions. And we've also introduced a chatbot and trained that so that people can come in, have lifetime chat, and get responses to the vast majority of the standard questions that are coming through. But it has taken time, effort to get people trained up, and they also need to be trained specifically to answer and deal with these inquiries that come through. So all I can do is offer there once again my sincere apologies that you may not have been receiving responses as quickly or as fast as we would have liked to have been getting those out to you, but we continue to work on that and are very aware of that as a challenge for us. Okay, Nicole. So beware phishing attempts. I'll keep on pointing everybody back to the ledger.com. These are a number of examples. We're getting loads of phishing attempts. They're still out there. They're sending them out. They're quite prolific, and some of them are very, very good. But once again, be aware, we're not going to ask you for those 24 words. We can't disable your device. So there is no ability for that to actually take place. So please be aware, please check, please verify. If you are ever in any doubt, come back and check with ledger.com, and if necessary, send us a ticket and a request to try and do that. Remembering, of course, that the attackers and the scammers' aim is to create a sense of urgency or a sense of panic. Stop, read, reread, check, verify before taking any of those actions. But they're very good. We're also aware that people are getting text messages purporting to be from us, and we've even had people phoning and purporting to be from the service desk or support call, asking to do a reset and asking for those 24 words. Okay. So move into the Q&A session now. So I'm hoping there's been a few questions that have gone into the chat as we've gone along, and I know Nicole will collate a few of those and ask me, and I'll respond to that. I'll just once again take the moment to say thank you one and all for coming along and giving me the opportunity to introduce myself, explain a little bit about what happened and what I'm doing and what I'm intending to do going forward. And I look forward to taking those questions and getting through as many as I can now. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Matt. Thanks a lot for walking us through all the events and explaining better what Ledger has been doing until now. So now we're going to dedicate some time to the question that we have received, not only on Twitter, but of course in the YouTube chat as well. So I would like to start with the question that we hear the most and that people have been asking the most until now. Is Ledger planning to give any compensation about this data breach? Matt, can you answer that?
Yeah, sure, I can answer that. And the answer is at this time, no, we're not looking to provide compensation. I've got a course of action where I am putting the funding and money into actually tracking down, chasing these individuals and prosecuting them, and then through that mechanism trying to recover what we were able to in that method. So, once again, coming on to the AMA, it's not easy, and I'm going to get asked tough questions, but the one thing that I'll commit to do is always being transparent and giving an honest and a straight upfront answer as I can.
Thanks a lot, Matt. So another question, it's more a fear that most of our users have been having at the moment, is that they often receive physical threat messages, emails, following this data breach. What would you suggest of doing about that?
Yeah, and once again, this is something that personally really gets to me. Having been in similar situations myself, coming from a law enforcement background, I can absolutely understand that sense and that feeling that it generates in yourself and people. So I would like to reiterate, I mentioned it briefly earlier, but first and foremost, their MO is they don't want physical confrontation themselves because they have a fear. They don't know who else is going to be around or what else is going to happen. So they don't want to expose themselves to that opportunity for actual physical confrontation. Secondly, we have had no reported incidents where this has ever actually been carried out. So there's been nothing that has ever been followed up or followed through. regardless of those two things, I can still understand that it is a concerning thing, and it's horrible to see and horrible to receive. But I would just say to people, do, once again, all of those good practices. We're all told to remain vigilant. If you see something suspicious, report it. And I would say the same thing to everybody here. Look, if you feel threatened or you're seeing something suspicious that's not adding up, talk to your local police, local law enforcement, raise it with them. If anybody feels that they're in imminent threat and imminent danger, then please call your emergency services. Absolutely.
Thanks a lot. Very clear, Matt. Okay, so another question that we have received, it's are you using an independent third party for penetration testing, and do you offer bounties for finding bugs and weakness? I think we can refer probably to our current bounty program. I'll let you introduce that.
Sure. So the short answer to, not so short, the answer is yes, absolutely. We use independent third parties to conduct tests. So once again, let's be clear on the different sorts of tests, because there are a number of different tests that are being done. There's the tests that actually get run on the certification of the physical hardware device itself. So that is independently laboratory tested and certified, which is why we're the only hardware wallet on the market that has that certification. That is done through them. We also engage independent third-party organisations who do assessments on things like our Ledger Live application, on our enterprise Ledger Vault, and we also conduct regular pen testing on our internal systems through on our internal network. I have a team of people who either conduct that themselves directly in-house, or we'll also bring in the independent third parties. Once again, that will depend upon what it is, what we're testing, what sort of review we're trying to do, what we think the threat landscape looks like to that. And also, we're going further than that. We have a number of other certifications, things like our SOC 2, and once again, that mandates a number of specific controls and checks that we're doing. With regard to the second part of the question, which was about bugs, yes, Ledger does operate a bug bounty program, and the details for that are on the Ledger website. So you can go through, do a search for bug bounty, and it will bring you up all of the links for the program there.
Okay, thank you. So I'll go with the next question because we have a lot, so I'm going to try to be fast. Mrs. Exquisite is asking, should we replace the credit card we used at the time of the purchase? Was the payment info compromised?
No. So no, there is no need to replace the credit card that was used at the time of purchase. The financial transactions use completely different mechanism. None of that has been touched, compromised. So there is no need to go and change that card. I understand that some people, out of a sense of or an overabundance of caution, will say, "Hey, I'll do that anyway." But there is nothing there to point or indicate that is required and necessary, or was in any way involved.
And another question for the same person. I know that we already answered during the presentation, but just to make it more clear, she's asking, or he's asking, if so. Yeah, but the data breach affected the website for purchases. Did it affect the Ledger aspect itself? So I think we are referring to the technology behind the Ledger device here.
Yep. So the Ledger device itself has not been impacted, did not touch it, was not involved as part of that. So I can't, once again, stress that enough. The Ledger device itself, the Nano, if you're using the Nano X or the Nano S, is still safe, has not been compromised.
Okay, perfect. Yes, and as Matt said it already multiple times, we remind you, keep your 24 hours safe. Do not share them with no one, not even someone that contacts you pretending to be support or someone so kind that want to help you in private. This is not something that is going to happen in the crypto world. 24 hours, just keep it for you. This is the rule number one.
Or if you give me your 24 words, I'll send you some Bitcoin or other currency as a thank you, because we're doing a test of, or any very clever and plausible combination that they can come up with.
Indeed. So next question is from Adam Kant. Will Ledger share intel on phishing attacks with other manufacturer like Trezor? I heard scammers also targeted the same addresses using attacks for other devices, as they know some have both.
Correct. So there are conversations that are ongoing with other organisations. So I won't really go into all of those and which ones they are. But the very short answer is yes, there is information sharing that is going backwards and forward. And once again, it's also about why we are being so very public on publishing those examples of the phishing campaign and updating those pages so that other organisations are free to refer to that or indeed point at it.
Okay, great. Thank you, Matt. There was someone asking, can you show how to report to Google Safe Browsing? I'm sure that my colleague in moderation shared a link to do that. There is any other indication you want to give for reporting, how to report actually fake websites or anything related to those scams attacks?
Yes. So once again, there are a lot of different ways. So either reporting, direct through to ourselves, but we ask you report to Google Safe Browsing. Excuse me. We will put the links into that to give you the instruction page for that. And actually, I'll go and make sure that we do an update on the ledger.com page. I believe there's already one link there that indicates and shows how to do a report of phishing, and there's the form to fill out there. But we'll do also an update on that to make sure that there is a link through to show you how to do for various browsers or other various services. So really good point there. Thank you.
Cheers. There was also someone else wondering, I don't know if it's really related with attack, but they were wondering if it was possible to buy with Bitcoin on our website. I can easily answer that. Yes, you can. We do have the possibility to do that. My colleague also shared the information in the chat. So if you prefer to purchase with Bitcoin, of course, makes sense, and you can definitely do that. Okay, so let me check for other question. Yes, there are a lot of people that are complaining about the slow response from support.
Yep. Yeah, and once again, look, all I can say specifically to that is aware we've got additional agents, additional support. We've put the chat bot in there as well, the additional FAQs. We are bringing more support agents in online to deal with that, to deal with the challenge on the backlog that's there as well. So we know that absolutely, and the guys and girls have been working flat out trying to get through all of those. I showed the small graph to give you an indication. Getting thousands of incident tickets requests being raised on a daily basis. Where we used to only have under 100. So the massive increase is there. We also are aware that we want the Ledger experience and the Ledger customer service experience, customer success experience to be top notch. So this isn't something where we're going to go and just throw a little bit of resource at this for now, get over a backlog and then go away. There is a long-term plan, and actually, Nicole, it might be one that we could invite Ian Rogers along to present at another AMA session about our customer success journey and all of the actions and activities that are going on that and what's been planned. So we've got all of the additional language support that's looking to be added in the next 12 months to different locations around the world. We've got a number of really, really exciting things that are coming through there. But I'd rather let Ian talk to that one because he's that's his. I don't want to steal his thunder.
Yeah, sure. Okay, great to know, Matt. And I see here other two questions coming. So one of them is, has the Shopify data breach been made public? What data is affected? For example, purchase model, amount.
Yeah. So the data that went out in that was, once again, very, very similar. It was the name, address, shipping address, phone numbers that was in there, and email address as well.
Okay, good. What do we have now? I think we already answered about any other private manner to to purchase on the website, purchase with crypto. So we mentioned that we have a couple of ways to go with that. And for sure, there might be new one in the future. There were some concerns about some users actually didn't receive our emails, and they didn't receive any communication about the data breach. So can you please maybe tell us again shortly how Ledger proceeded to promptly advise users that were impacted about
Sure, I did touch on this a little bit earlier, but when we had the notifications, we actually sent out to the impacted email addresses. So we know some of those email addresses had since become defunct. We also know that there was a number of the mails that had been delivered or filtered through spam, through spam or spam gateways that actually blocked them from landing. So once again, I just ask people to go back, have a check, and look in your spam folder, and you'll hopefully find that was in there. But unfortunately, email is such a an unreliable mechanism of communication, and that's why we're moving specifically to the targeted use of a secure channel via Ledger Live to communicate any sensitive information with you. So there will be a notification when you go into Ledger Live. Thank you.
Indeed. Okay, so I think it's our time to close this MEA and just making sure that I've been through the main concerns that have been raised. There have been a lot of questions. We have been trying to answer all of them, but of course, we just have 1 hour to do that. So yeah, I think we have been through most of the questions. So thanks again a lot, Matt, for explaining all of these to all of us. And I hope that our users appreciate this recap. Once again, we have multiple articles talking about the stopping and giving further details. If you want to read them, my colleague is going to share them in the chat. And we wish you all a good night, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for all the questions. Thanks for the opportunity to come along and speak with you all, and look forward to hopefully seeing all of you post-COVID at a Ledger event in the near future. Many thanks.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.